Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Wherever you're listening around the world, a very warm welcome from London in the UK. Here is today's news about electric cars and the future of transport. My name is Martin Lee. This is your EV News Daily for Thursday, the 15th of March, 2018. And just before we start, a quick question. You know I post the news to YouTube every day for those who like to listen to videos, as some people do on YouTube. Something I thought it would be a nice thing to do. No extra effort really on my part. Couple of clicks. I've had a couple of comments in the last week saying that I should do this in vision, that you'd like to watch the news as well. I could do that if you want me to. I could do maybe once a week video version. What do you think? Would it be good or not? My hesitation, by the way, is there are some brilliant video ones out there already. Obviously, Top of the Heap is fully charged because what Robert and Johnny do with the news editions is so funny. It's so good. And E4Electric as well, I highly recommend that. It's just a brilliant video news update. If you'd like to see more of the kind of stories we talk about, like a little clips or webpage screenshots, let me know either in the YouTube comments or the blog comments on Twitter and leave it with me. Well, let's get into the news you want to know about. And because yesterday was a VW special report, I've got a load I want to share with you today. So it's a bumper, 10 headlines, but I'll keep it quick and I'll put a link in the blog and the podcast notes if you want to follow any of these up. Well, first of all, I was chatting to Christina Boo, who is the Secretary General of the Norwegian EV Association, like 50,000 members I think they have, last night on Twitter, because she'd said that there were 18,000 expressions of interest in the new Hyundai Kona. And I replied, oh, that sounds like the figure that I'd heard from South Korea for the EV incentive that's ending there, so people have signed up really quickly, not deposits, but put their names down so they're on the list, as it were, and they get their money off in South Korea. But she replied, no, what she was talking about was those in Norway. Now, these again aren't deposits, but they are 18,000 people who have registered as wanting one. Now, Christina put me onto an article which, although I had to use Google Translate, I got the gist of. It looks like that from this July through to the end of the year, Hyundai want to ship 2,500 Kona EVs to Norway in quarters 3 and 4 this year. Now, one of my presumptions, and I was wrong, was that due to domestic demand in South Korea, which, like I say, I know thousands have put their name down already in South Korea, but also there was quite a limited initial run of the Kona EV, that Europe and North America wouldn't really see many until 2019. If this article's correct, and at least 2,500 are going to go to Norway from July, that's great news. Has production increased? Are they prioritising Norway because it's such a huge EV market? Well, hopefully we'll know more soon, but there's no doubt, if they can make enough, they will sell a lot of the long-range Hyundai Kona and its kind of sister car, based on the same platform, same specs, the Kia Niro. Well, following up the VW news about the $25 billion worth of battery contracts secured for Europe and China, with North America still in negotiations, some news about where they're going to build those brand new VW EV cars, the ID range, as they've been calling it. We know that the first one's going to be called the Neo. It's the Golf-sized car, which is the first one. Golf size, Golf price, looks like a Golf, probably drives like a Golf. They're not calling it the Golf, it's the Neo. Now, according to Matthias Schmidt, he's an auto analyst that I follow and have had a few chats to on Twitter, and is insanely knowledgeable about everything EV. He says ID production's going to get underway quarter 3, 2019. So I guess anytime from July onwards next year. One line in Zwickau, moving to a double production line during 2020. Daily production aimed at 1,500 cars by 2020. I mean, those are big numbers, right? It sounds a lot. Remember as well, by 2020, Tesla say they want to be making 500,000 Model 3s every year. Well, staying with VW news, and according to EV Obsession, pictures of Volkswagen's first Chinese electric vehicle, built in its joint venture with JAC, have surfaced from patent filings. The Volkswagen and JAC joint venture should be presenting its first 3 models by the end of this quarter. So by summer, we'll see them, according to Gasco. And spy images indicate the first car is going to be based on the existing iEV 7S. It may well be badged with VW's Seat brand, but this article says building its electric vehicles from an existing lineup is really smart, as JAC electric cars are well designed and it will drastically cut entry to market time, as the factories and suppliers are already working to make the iEV 7S and can probably migrate based on demand. Well, these new ones won't be the typical VW Premium that you might see in America and Europe. There'll be no bells and whistles, but they'll be solid, and they'll be very cheap by any other standards. Well, remember those new clean diesel engines? Sorry, I had to clear my throat then. Those clean diesel engines, which were made to suit the Euro 6 emission standards. It's not an issue in America as such because you guys in America don't really have a lot of diesels. But here in Europe, we fell for it hook, line and sinker, like 50-60% market share in some countries. And I wanted to highlight that because it's an insight into why the world hasn't got EVs sooner, apart from obviously what Tesla are doing in America. Those new efficient, clean, clean diesels were introduced around 2014-15, and typically those engines have about a 7-year life cycle in any kind of automaker's engine lineup, with R&D, investment and cost and new things coming through the product line. 6-7 years for a product cycle is about right, and that is part of the explanation why we aren't all driving EVs yet, with a focus on ensuring that those sunk costs, those R&D costs, are recouped. I think you'll expect to see at least 2 more years of very bumpy EV sales versus combustion engine sales, as they want to just rinse the final couple of years out of fossil fuels. Don't blame the automakers, they're just doing what they have to do for their shareholders. All right, blame them a little bit then. As an example of that, BMW just said that if you buy a diesel, you can return it. Described as a last-ditch attempt to shift fossil fuel cars, the Diesel Return Promise is what it's called. Starts in Germany this week. It allows anyone who leases a new BMW with a diesel engine to return the car to the Munich-based car maker if a driving restriction on diesels is introduced in a city within about 60 miles of their home, about 100 k's of where you live, according to Motor One. Clearly, BMW have done their market research. Everyone in Germany's gone, we're going to get diesel bans in cities. I ain't buying one, or the German for I ain't buying one, and so they're having to do this. BMW, they continue, has also announced it will offer an environmental bonus to owners of older diesel cars, which will be affected by all of these new restrictions. Owners of Euro 4 vehicles or older will get about £1,700, about €1,500 or $2,000 towards the purchase of an i3, a plug-in hybrid, or a clean diesel. It's great news for those who want peace of mind, but looking at the bigger picture, if you have to offer a money-back guarantee on anything you sell, whatever you're selling, you need to worry. I think they're worried. They make incredible cars like the i3, the i8, soon the i4, the iX3. But yeah, that sounds like a company who've really got to shift the final few clean fossil fuel cars for just the final couple of years. Well, moving on, and fleet sales, my cough's cleared up. Moving on, and fleet sales are a big profit line for car makers, and now, according to FleetNews data from ALD Automotive's plug-in hybrid scheme with ProFleet telematics, they've done some trials and shown that fleets could save £2,000 or about $2,500 if they switch from diesels in their fleets to plug-in hybrids in their fleets. They say in the 6-month-long trial, ALD drivers swapped petrol and diesel cars for plug-in hybrids. Running these cars for 15,000 miles a year, as fleet drivers often do, for 3 or 4 years, they concluded that the businesses who run fleets would save £2,000 every vehicle replaced by a plug-in hybrid. Well, Matt Dale is the head of consultancy at ALD, and he said, "We went into this trial with a very open mind and decided from the start there are no preconceptions, but it would be a factual review of hybrids to see how they work. The results have surprised us." Well, next up, according to PHEV'S, LG Chem's battery plant in Poland, which currently produces 100,000 batteries a year, is about to triple its output. They said while in China, Volkswagen chose CATL, and in Europe, Volkswagen choosing LG Chem as its EV battery supplier for the MEB platform, these ID cars which are coming. In the near future, it seems the upcoming second-gen Renault Zoe and the Nissan Leaf coming next year is going to have the LG Chem EV battery production capacity from Europe, and that's why they are increasing it. Of course, that new Nissan Leaf being a 60... Is this actually even officially announced by Nissan? Because it's kind of common knowledge. Or maybe it's not. Everyone says it. 60 kilowatt hour with some thermal management on that, because it's the LG Chem cells, their batteries they're using in that range increase, better coping with temperature. Not that big a deal because the current 40 watt kilowatt hour new Leaf is still bloomin' brilliant if you've got one or are getting one. They continue that Samsung SDI battery cell production in Hungary is going to start this quarter, so you can expect the much-awaited battery capacity upgrade for the BMW i3 announced in early summer. Furthermore, SK Innovation is building a new EV battery plant in Europe, and you can follow the link for more of the always excellent article from Push EVs, again in the blog and the podcast description. Well, since 2017, new Tesla owners have had to pay for electricity from superchargers, and now they're increasing those prices. Tesla's largest market in the US, obviously California, has its rates increased from 20 cents per kilowatt hour to 26 cents per kilowatt hour. Over in New York, the rate went up from 19 cents per kilowatt hour to 24 cents per kilowatt hour. The biggest increase is in Oregon. Relatively low, 12 cents per kilowatt hour up until now. Now it's going to be up and doubled to 24 cents per kilowatt hour. A similar thing happened here in the UK, then everyone moaned about it as well. A company called Ecotricity spent a huge investment in putting chargers on all of the main road networks. Whilst they were doing it, it was all on free vend. So people got into the habit of turning up and getting free electricity. It became a thing which was free, and therefore had no value. You buy an EV, you drive for free. Then, when the company said they needed to start charging, as, they're not a charity, when you were reading the EV forums and posts on Twitter, it's like people had their life savings taken away from them. Look, the rates are really reasonable here in the UK, and those rates in the US as well. And somehow, these chargers, this infrastructure has to be paid for, along with the actual electricity that you're using. Still, people are upset. Well, next up, and staying with Tesla, that long-range semi-truck has been on the move. 2,000 miles, in fact. It showed up at Anheuser-Busch Brewery in St. Louis on Tuesday. Teslarati's website points out that Tesla's high-powered megachargers are to be installed at key locations frequently visited by fleet operators. Now, they say that this system would enable the semi-truck to travel from one facility to another without compromising its range. With this in mind, they say the Anheuser-Busch facility in St. Louis definitely seems to be a site where the beer giant could build some giant charging stations for the 40 Tesla semis the company have on order. Tesla seem to be testing their prototypes in public, which is very brave, and I commend it. Remember the new Roadster, which stopped in California on the road and had to be rescued, which Tesla said was very much not broken down, by the way. They took a bit of teasing on social media for that. So it's good to see they're getting the semi clocking up some real world miles, because no doubt it's going to break down at some point, and someone's going to go on Twitter and put a picture of a Tesla semi truck being rescued. It's a prototype. Right, it's just done 2,000 miles, give them a break. And the third time's a charm, a triple whammy, if you like, of Tesla stories today. Reuters point out that Tesla's shift to a magnetic motor using neodymium in its Model 3 long range adds pressure on really constrained supplies. Some electric car motors use the permanent magnet technology, most famous in the Tesla Model 3 long range. All the other Tesla models, the X and the 3 standard, use induction motors, says David Merriman, a senior analyst at the metals consultancy Roskill. Whilst many materials which are called rare earth are actually really common, when they're only found in certain parts of the world, they do get affected by geopolitical factors like export bans or tariffs, and it must be on all of those EV makers to secure those supplies and not to be at risk from one particular rare earth metal. Well, moving on to Ford now. I often wonder about them. The chairman talks up electric cars, and yet I follow the UK PR chief on Twitter. He comes across as a really top chap, but I often see him just talking down electric cars. So I didn't quite know what their agenda was at Ford. I've never really known where they stand. Currently, Ford makes diesel engines in the UK, and a lot of them. But with new sales plummeting, used values in decline, and buyers nowhere wanting to risk buying a diesel only to find out it's worth so little in a few years' time, or even worse, they have to pay some sort of extra fee to get out of their finance deal or to end their purchase plan because the depreciation was so much faster than predicted by the lender. That can catch you out. The future of the factory here in the UK that makes them has been questioned by some in the news this week. The union Unite yesterday presented a document outlining a strategy for the whole UK automotive industry, which it says supports 800,000 jobs. It asked the government to help the shift to electric vehicles by supporting R&D, training and investment. Can I just, by the way, echo that statement? Every month we get new sales figures from the official body here in the UK, the SMMT, and every month in the press release they talk about the government needing to do more to make it clear about diesel's future. It's a misguided policy. It's this. They are the industry body for motor manufacturers and traders. And what frustrates me so much is anyone can see it's a huge industry about to be disrupted, and a bazillion mechanics that are going to need training on high voltage systems. EVs don't take maintenance, as you know, but some of them will at some point, and I just don't see that happening on scale yet. There's a lot of resistance, a lot of belly aching, a lot of moaning about the fact that diesel's dying, and they're just trying to hold on to the last few bits of it rather than saying, okay, electric cars are coming, autonomous driving's coming, how can we help people shift their jobs, their careers, this whole industry, almost 1 million people, how can we support them? Maybe they do that and I don't see that. And if that's the case, then I apologise. Well, thank you for listening today. Hope you enjoyed it. I'd love to spread the word about electric cars. If you can, share this with somebody who might be interested. Every previous episode of the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, or audio only for now, and the blog, evnewsdaily.com. You can subscribe and get every new episode automatically, first and free. And it would mean a lot if you would take 2 minutes to review on iTunes, or just say a couple of words, little rating, 1 star, 5 star, whatever you think. If you have an Amazon Echo, download our Alexa skill, search EV News Daily and add it as a flash briefing. On Twitter, I'm at EV News Daily. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you tomorrow.